Do you like wrestling trivia? Then check out the 5-Star Match Game, the Pro Wrestling Quiz Show. I'm Joe Gagney, and every episode, I grill 3 contestants with 5 rounds of power-packed wrestling trivia. We have over 30 evergreen episodes in the archives covering WWE, AEW, Japan, Mexico, and much, 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 much more. Play along at home and check it out today.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling podcasting network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Hello and welcome back to the Euro Clutch. I'm Ian Hamilton and joined by special guests in this episode. Welcome back to the Voices of Wrestling podcast feed, Neil David. Neil, how's it going?
Yeah, it's going really well. I'm really excited to get the headphones back on. It feels like a long time since I've done any audio, and it's a long time since I've complained about British wrestling. So I've got some hot, spicy takes ready to go.
Yeah, we've been in a bit of a heat wave around these parts the last few days, so been kind of waiting to not add to the heat with extra expletives. But yeah, main thing we're going to be going on about on this episode is going to be the state of Rev Pro, because there's quite a bit of discontent coming across a certain part of the fan base, which is a little unfortunate, bearing in mind it's their self-proclaimed biggest summit ever, which we'll touch upon. But of course, was it last month we had the 30 under 30 list on Voice of Wrestling, and be remiss to not talk about. I know it's pretty much old news, but we're the only European wrestling podcast on there, so we do kind of need to address it. So yeah, we had the top 30, bunch of honourable mentions, and Gabe Kidd coming out number 1, Francesco Akira number 23, Callum Newman 29th. They're your only European inclusion, so 10%, great. But you look at like the honourable mentions, and you look at like Mike DeVecchio, Axiom, Crowchester, which I have a pretty strong suspicion who put that vote in, because that's a name you have to be watching one promotion out of Berlin pretty much to be have him on your radar. Drilla Maloney, Leon Slater, Luke Jacobs, Mariah May, now Blake Monroe, Oscar Leuber, Tommy Billington, Zazaya, Danny Luna. It's like, well, that's a decent name, but it's like you'd think with the breadth of people on the voting panel, there's a lot of names in there who, I'm surprised didn't even get onto the hey, they got a token vote thing. I guess, full disclosure, I would have been part of the panel before stuff kicked off, brought some last episode, so didn't get around to submitting a list, and most of my names probably would have made that, hey, they got a solitary vote kind of thing. But, just going through some of the names that, would have been eligible, like you've got Leon Cage, who, granted, he's only just broken onto the scene, but, there's a name that, assuming this current injury doesn't, screw him up too much, you'd be expecting to be a bit of a fixture on this list. Paige Tahani, former WXW Unified Champion, okay, he's on the injury list. Depending how much longer he's on the shelf, may not be on next year's list, but surprised he wasn't on there. True and Lacey, surprised they were no Junior Tag League finalists this past year. Again, is that something where, a lack of, consistent high-level UK appearances, has that had an impact? Want to go to like similar proxy, CPF, Danny Black, Joe Lando, they've started becoming a lot more regular in Rev Pro. Idle Blanc, heck, he was in the Champions Carnival earlier this year, didn't get a vote. You can go down, I'm just going to rattle off a bunch of names here, JJ Gale, Ricky Knight Jr., Millie McKenzie, Man Like Dries, Nick Schreier, Aaliyah Bloom, Lawrence Roman, the two Lycosses, Rio, Kuro, Will Cruz. Maybe next year, if that no run he's on at the moment goes well, but there's about a dozen or so names who really, I'm not saying would be even made for honourable mentions, but names who are getting some kind of traction or regular appearances across Europe. That it's the kind of thing you'd think maybe next year if there's fresh eyeballs. But I don't know if you put a vote in, Neil, or if there's any names you would have at least struck a vote in for.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting. Like you sort of alluded to it there, that when you look at the three that actually got in, they're the three that don't really work in Europe. You know, you got Gabe Kidd, Francisco Akira, and Callum Newman are working in New Japan. And then when you look down the list, I think Leon Cage, yeah, I think he's one to look for next year. I've enjoyed some of his work in Rev Pro. I mean, Connor Mills for me is someone who I'm always going to have a bit of a soft spot for. But then you look at some of the booking for a lot of the people, like Ricky Knight Jr., for example. Who was the other one that I was thinking of? I mean, I suppose you could put Connor Mills in there as well. People like Kid Lycos. Like, these are kind of a bit on the treadmill kind of guys. So they're not people that are necessarily going to stand up and stand out in a way. I mean, Peter Tiani, injury and what have you. Leon Slater doesn't feel like he's on the tip of our tongue. I would probably have voted for Nino Bryan, and I didn't vote, by the way. I've had I'm kind of same as you. It's just it takes so much work to do this, and I think it's so much work to put it all together and to even just make a list. So huge kudos to the guys and girls that did it. I would have voted for Nino Bryan, but I understand why people don't, because he's not a wrestler who you can look at come into the ring and get excited about. But when you actually, he's someone you've got to really invest in and get that kind of momentum going. So I can kind of understand why he's not in there.
Obviously, Nino Bryan's not really originally booked for that particular spot. A couple of names I was going to be looking for, Aaliyah Bloom. Probably come pretty high up on my list. Like, he's a guy, granted, mainly WXW, although he has done as a New Wave over in Wales. He did a run a couple of months back. But he's a guy who, I don't say had like a white meat babyface kind of run, but at the start of the year, he had a big change of character and a lot more, I don't say extreme like he's doing weaponry and what have you, but he's shown a completely different side to himself. So he's a lot more three-dimensional as a character. So maybe that carries on throughout 2025 into 2026. We'll see how that goes. Going on back, Leon Slater, as much as he's with TNA thing is a feather to the bow, or a feather in the cap, so to speak. I do wonder just how much that is just window dressing, because in TNA, Garrett Kidney aside, I don't really see that many people talking about TNA. No. It's that whole thing of it's good, we've got Harley Hudson, we've got Myla Grace, Zaya Brookside, relocating's got a contract there. But it's you've got all the the British names in there, but as far as people actually talking about them, I barely see anything. And I'm not saying TNA is where people go to die and wait for an NXT contract, but it seems weird that the most time hearing about Leon's run in TNA with the Hardy Boys is when he's mentioned it in promos and on Twitter.
It felt like there was a lot of fanfare to the signing, and the cynic in me would suggest that maybe it was a bit of an advertisement more than an actual intention, because it doesn't really seem like it's the momentum has carried them through, really. Which is a bit of a shame, really, because it's, Leon Slater was becoming a difference maker for our scene, and it would have been better to have him around a little bit more. Do you know, actually, the one that does surprise me the most, and I think I missed him off a second ago, was Mike D. I thought he would get much, much higher than he did. I'm not a big All Japan guy. I watch the big matches, I watch the championship matches, but I watched his carnival matches, and I don't think there was anything that really stood out to me as being particularly amazing. But there's just something about a big meathead flying around and like a big sort of chav bruising people and then, doing some bad flip over the rope, and he's just such a captivating person that I thought the buzz after the carnival would have been a bit more for him. But again, I might be cynical here, but he has just signed a contract with New York, I believe. So is there still that old thing of people like us? Because it's a very work rate kind of list, isn't it? So as soon as someone gets that signing,
I mean, obviously, so Mike D and Nigel Blanc, they're having their farewell match in WXW on, was it August 9th, August 10th? WXW Shortcut for Top. They haven't said outright where they're going, but people are putting two and two together. With Mike D, for one thing which would have held me back from having him that high up on his list, and again, if you look at the voting period, say, as a June this came out. So if you want to go June to June, he's only had 65 matches in this calendar year. And you can say, well, you had, ironically, 1st of June 2024, had Jeff Cobb for WXW, then he had stuff for GWF, EWA in Vienna, yes, that same promotion, Mercedes Moné, popped about nowhere and won a belt in. Be like, you're looking there, then you go over to, the run he had in the UK, or lack of. Was it about this time last year, he popped up in Revolution Rumble, had a brief run, a brief feud with Ricky Knight Jr., and then never appeared in Rev Pro again. Progress, he's got a match, I believe, at this coming month against Axel Tischer for the Atlas belt. A tables match, because why the fuck not? But now the fact that
because this
Mike
is
D's
awesome.
on his way out. Well, I mean, this is probably me speaking out of pocket. I do wonder if that was based on the GCW cage spots over WrestleMania weekend.
Right.
The Gringo Loco, sit out powerbomb through a load of tables. But the one thing that really stood out to me, though, was the 2 All Japan runs. So obviously, in November last year, he did the Real World Tag League, and pretty much straight away he came back. He pulled out of a bunch of dates, like you can see on his cage match. Last All Japan Real World Tag League show was December 8th, and then the next show was February 22nd. Now, he took time out because of an injury, fair enough. And he goes through, does a couple of WXW shows, then Superstar Wrestling in Belgium, WXW again through 16 Karat Gold. After 16 Karat Gold, got Wall Street flipped backwards. Then Champions Carnival, WrestleMania, Champions Carnival again. And again, coming back from the Champions Carnival in May, he's got an injury. WXW strips him of that European belt, and pretty much, when he has that farewell match in August, that'll have been his first WXW match in nearly 4 months. And granted, we always say people his size shouldn't be flying around because more prone to injury, but that's kind of it. I think in terms of consistency, if you're I don't say saving yourself, but if you're going all out for the big Japan run, but then having to sit on the shelf recovering, unfortunately, that's a kind of style which is really going to shorten your career. And I would say there's whatever this contract is, it's come to the right time, if only because you're not going to get this whole, I need to go all out and, impress. If you've got your bag, you're not having to do that, but it does come with the downside of, as a fan, you're probably not going to see him as much. Heck, even if this is, I know there has been talk of NXT Europe, but, if that comes up, who knows what that's going to be? One of the last episodes I did on this, I posited it was literally going to be Evolve, a YouTube only show, which, and we've both lived through NXT UK, that did its fair bit of damage to the European scene. And that was on, BT Sport, that was on the WWE Network. That didn't do too much for those names. That was, we said for time, it was a front for WWE to get the names they wanted. They got their Pete Dunne, they got their Walter, they got their Tyler Bate. Okay, they fucked 2/3 of those guys up, but that was effectively, in hindsight, a front for getting the names they wanted without being seen to cherry pick. I doubt an NXT UK would be any different. That's an NXT Europe would be any different, but we'll see. But going back to that final 30 under 30 list, the other thing I thought was telling, out of the 30 names, only 2 of them were independent guys. Mad Dog Connolly and Adam Priest. The rest of them were either, big American promotion or Japanese promotion. It's that kind of speaks to the issue of, guess what we just spoke with Mike D. If you've got the proverbial bag as a contract, you're not constantly having to go out and, go balls to the wall to get the next big booking. Okay, the inverse may be that if you have that, you can take your foot off the gas, and we've seen that a few times. But, definitely when it comes to whatever's next for both Idle Blanc and Mike D, it'll be good for both the bodies, but at the same point, if you're the kind who puts these lists together, looking for match of the year stuff and what have you, I don't think you can be getting those with any kind of regularity, especially if, as we suspect, NXT Europe's going to be an Evolve, 2 match, 10 minutes a week card with various segments. I mean, hope I'm proven wrong, but yeah, to me, it just doesn't feel like it's going to be. It's not going to get that much in the way of fresh eyeballs, let's put it like that, especially not the level where, when back in the day you were working every weekend for your Progresses, your Rev Pros, or, big name European promotions of the day.
We just don't have that indie culture, do we, anymore? I think not even from an infrastructure point of view. I think those don't really exist in the way that they did. But also, if you think to early 2000s, if you think to sort of 2008, 2009, those kind of eras when these big companies were completely off the cards for a lot of guys, and the glory and the joy was in creating wonderful professional wrestling in front of the audience there. I don't know if that ethos is there from the wrestlers themselves either to go out and do that quite often. It does still exist, but you just kind of have to dig for it a little bit more.
Yeah, it's a lot more sparse than it used to be. I mean, again, you're looking at some other names, like back then we had names who'd, I would say frequently, because a lot of this was PWG and they're no longer a thing. But like, you're not getting the volume of names, or at least volume of names going over doing high profile stuff in the States. Like, just off the top of my head, Sapphire Reed did a tour of the States last year and was all, I absolutely don't want to say nothing promotions, but certainly not promotions that people outside of the hardcore online bubble would even be aware of.
Yeah, and there's no representation of her as well. So, like, when the British invasion of PWG happened, it was like, oh my God, here's this hot scene. Let's put it on a pedestal and let's all enjoy it. Then the Australian scene sort of burst out. And then, there just isn't that sort of worldwide kind of ethos anymore, I think, of people kind of searching for this exciting independent wrestling, because it doesn't really exist and there doesn't seem to be as much of an appetite for it. Maybe that's just me being a grumpy old man, though. I don't know. Maybe it is there. Send me links, send me links.
But I think the other thing as well is, like, Progress had a lot of their guys get US visas. So you had, like, your Tate Mayfairs, your Rios, having, some brief US indie runs. But again, those, pretty much didn't seem to register on any radars. And again, Rio's another name who you suspect is being signed. We'll see. But yeah, like I say, it feels like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy of kinds. Like, the European scene isn't getting the eyeballs it used to. It's not the darling that it was, 7-8 years ago. But again, I don't really know what you can do to fix it. We're in this, I spoke about this a few episodes back, where you've got this almost like a mire of every promotion is live or trying to go live to get those day one views of, the as live views. But so is everybody else. And I think we're in this position where the European scene is trying to be like everyone else to get the attention, but for a lot of people, what we've all spoken of, just how much dilution there is with WWE and AEW. I mean, I was listening to a podcast with Andrew Bowers of North Wrestling, pretty much saying the same, like, we're meant to be in this big wrestling boom, but it really is a WWE boom, and even is that overblown. But yeah, I mean, I think European wrestling in general, not picking out any promotions yet, but European wrestling in general does seem to be in a spot where they have lost their collective spark. They need to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. The part of this, I don't want to say, all this fans are shit, but we had that spell, coming out of lockdown and everything else, where you had fans screaming, oh yeah, it's great, this is back, this is the hot new shit, this is really great. And I remember at the time, after about 5 or 6 runs of, oh, this guy's the best, he's the next big thing, and the same people were sitting on their hands. You couldn't find them a search party when a true guy who's actually gone places like Leon Slater was breaking out. I think it's that whole thing of you've got fan bases who were popping for everything, looking for that big viral tweet to get the Elon pennies to say, oh, he's a big star, you want to follow him, this, that, and the other. The boys cried wolf too much, and now at the spot where, simply going, this person's the hot new thing, you need to check this person out, really doesn't stand out when you've got, feels like 24 hours a week from WWE and AEW every week. But
I think a lot of that is like dependent on Rev Pro in a lot of ways. I think when Rev Pro kind of take the foot off the gas, which they do periodically, and they go through these down cycles that I think we're in the middle of one now, it really does feel like that affects your view of everything, because it feels like you've got Rev Pro for the work rate, and you talk about reinventing the wheel. Traditionally, that's what Rev Pro did, and if you go back to the Voices of Wrestling top 100 matches of the year for the past few years, Rev Pro would be getting more matches than WWE matches, because they would be going out and putting on these big quality matches. Now, I still think the Rev Pro matches generally are quite good. There's usually good things on each show, but it's not of that level anymore. And then you've got the other genre of British wrestling, which just seems to be your progress-like shows, which is never going to generate that kind of buzz, because that becomes almost this sort of self-fulfilling prophecy kind of booking, that the people in the room pop for it. It's for those people in the room. Like the Progress thing, they might sell a couple of hundred tickets every show, and it's the same couple of hundred people, and they've whittled that audience down to the sort of the absolute bare minimum, and it's not going to burst out anywhere or get anywhere going, and it feels, a lot of those kind of shows feel like, to me, as a wrestling fan, I'm quite often going up to Pendlebury Social Club to watch Salford City Wrestling, and I could pay 10 quid for a ticket and drive for 5 minutes, and I'll have significantly more fun than I will have going to a Progress show in the middle of town and having to pay for parking. So it's a funny scene at the moment, a very funny scene.
Yeah, I've heard a few make the same kind of sentiment. Like, I mean, I've not been, just my own experience, I've really cut back on my live wrestling this year. Like, pre-pandemic, I was doing way too many shows, Rev Pros, regular Progress, went that bloody cave show that gave everyone no demo version of COVID, it turned out. But now it's like 16 Karat Gold weekend for WXW, their autumn weekend Pro Wrestling Grand Prix, Rev Pro season ticket for 2 to 9. That's pretty much it. And it's like, it's not because there's a lack of shows, but just to me, nothing, at least the social media stuff that I'm seeing, no one's presenting anything that's making me go, I need to see that. Like, there's a promotion literally 5 minutes down the road for me that, they do a show every other month. I've called like the Foam Finger Wrestling, where it's very much, quote unquote casual crowd, the kids, that kind of audience. And the problem is, because I don't see them promote on Twitter, they only promote on Instagram. I'll see their shows, but by the time I see the shows come around, the tickets are all gone. So, those kind of shows tend to get crowds, but those tend to be like the Mega Slams, where they're in your town once in a, I don't say a blue moon, but they're not running every month, where you're having to pick and choose months if you're we can't afford this month, let's go next month, that kind of thing. But also not wearing out for welcome. And I think switch over to Rev Pro, and like they're advertising this next run of show, their biggest summer ever. I mean, heck, they put the tweet out this afternoon. July 6th, 2 to 9 in London. July 13th, HMV Empire Coventry. Friday, July 25th, Summer Sizzler, that's the show of Mercedes Money in Wolverhampton. Get to that. 2 days later, Network in Sheffield, because why the hell not? Then August 3rd, back for 2 to 9 in London. August 9th and 10th, the Festsaal Kreuzberg in Berlin. August 16th, Buckland Dome in Portsmouth, that's one of their contender shows. The next day, the 1865 in Southampton, God Strike Me Down. And then the following weekend, the 13-year anniversary shows in Crystal Palace. So you're looking at, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 shows, say 8, we discount the contender show before the anniversary. And I'm sat here right now, and I'm thinking, they haven't announced any names for the anniversary show. I mean, tickets have sold because it's Rev Pro anniversary. But it's like, I'm sat here now, like, I've got a season ticket for that 229 show on Sunday. And, people behind the curtain, I don't know when this is going to go up, but it's currently 9:10 on Wednesday, July the 2nd. We don't know a single match for that 229 show this weekend.
That's crazy to me. I really, like, that's just... the job title is promoter, and you're not announcing any matches, and that's not promoting. I think what I was sort of alluding to, before, is Rev Pro could be the promotion for the sickos, as the AEW fans like to say. It could be for the people who just absolutely love professional wrestling. And that's what the shows at the 229 were for as well. You know, that was always the great thing about Rev Pro, is that Stevenage always felt like kind of the family wrestling show. You had your big events at York Hall and bigger events than, you know, at the Copper Box and whatnot. But it really felt like those 229 shows were for the me and you, you know, and it's hard for us to get excited about it if there's literally nothing for us to get. Like, there's nothing for us to get excited about. Like, there's literally nothing for us to get excited about.
I mean, no, we'll touch upon this, like, you know, the last couple of big shows we had, the Butch Jacob and Stevenage a few weeks back. That was the show where originally you were going to have had, was it? The winner of the Butch Jacob was originally going to get their Cruiserweight title shot at the anniversary show. And then it was a couple of weeks before we had Leon Cage against Chris Ridgway in Sheffield. And as one of those, winner gets a shot at the Revolution Rumble against Will Caven, and the loser goes on Butch Jacob. So, you know, it's meant to be, if you lose, well, you still have a way to get a title shot, but you've just got to go the long way around. Leon Cage picked up an injury. I don't know if it was in that match against Ridgway or shortly afterwards, and that just upended everything. So they did a switcheroo. Rev Pro announced the Jacob winner was going to get the shot at the Rumble show a week later. Cage will get his match sometime never when he comes back, and who knows what happens at the anniversary show. I don't even know if they know. But again, as seems to be the way for Rev Pro, that Butch Jacob show, they didn't have that full field announcement like a day or two before the show. But like, we knew Adam Priest and Ace Austin were the two big imports for the show. But like, I think it was only Ender Cara was the only other non-regular involved. So you kind of like, okay. And I think by the end was it Ethan Allen was the last name in the field. It's like, okay, how many, no, has anyone fallen out? Because, you know, someone pointed out when these names are being announced, we haven't had anyone from New Japan this calendar year over here, and you think, you know, you couldn't really go through any one of these marquee shows without New Japan name. Heck, there's been times we had Leo Rush and Minoru Suzuki for 229. Right?
It's interesting as well that they've booked Tetsuya Naito and Bushi as well. It's like, because you know, as they are very notoriously now not New Japan, so. And I believe that's their first booking, isn't it? Is that the first announcement?
That's the first announced booking. I believe we've been doing a bunch of like talk shows and stuff like that.
Yeah, he did an ice cream shop, did he?
Yeah. So this will be Naito and Bushi's first match. Well, I'm assuming match. I mean, if they're just flying over to do a talk show in Wolverhampton, that's going to have some very confused people in the Black Country. But yeah,
well,
that'd be
I don't think they would do that. I think if they did that, that'd be very naughty. Because I'm not actually going to that show. Me and my wife every year at the start of summer, we go for like a big slap up meal somewhere, like Michelin, like we really sort of spend holiday money on a meal, and it just so happens that we booked that weekend to do it. So I'm a bit like, it's one of those, you know, I absolutely can't get out of it. But if that weekend was free, I'd be going, and it would be on the assumption that I would see him, even T-shirt Naito. You know, at this point, I'm not bothered about T-shirt Naito, so surely he must be wrestling. He must be.
I may not expect. I mean, obviously, we don't know right now what the deal is. We'll find out in due course. But yes, like, you know, we're looking at that, but, you know, no New Japan names in Stevenage, nor at Revolution Rumble.
See,
no only CMLL.
You were a bit. I know you were quite down on the Jacob roster when it was announced. Like, I didn't think it was too bad, but I think you would, like you say, I think there was an expectation that there would be some more exciting names in there.
Yeah, I mean, I like Adam Priest. Again, I've been spoiled. I've seen him like really up close at WXW, like the Academy shows or the Inner Circle shows. It just, to me, it felt like as a lineup, it was just missing that spark. Like,
yeah,
and again,
that's the point. I think that's what's endemic of Rev Pro, and I think that's what it is that's bothering me with them a bit at the moment. It's like, say, to jump forward a little bit, TK Cooper getting a title shot at the Rumble. TK Cooper's fine. I think he's a good wrestler, and I know he's going to have a good match, and the match was a good match. But I'm never going to get excited about TK Cooper. Like Ace Austin, again, I really like him, but I don't know if I'm going to be like, oh yeah, Ace Austin. It's that sort of you always that kind of one step down with Rev Pro at the moment.
Yeah, and I don't want to use the backhand compliment, oh, he's a good hand, but I think with TK, there's that whole thing of he's missed the boat. No, I don't want to say for any fault of his own. I mean, we've both been fans long enough. We had that horror injury in New York when everyone, with Progress Show, and then COVID disrupting stuff as it did with everyone. But to me, let's go for TK Cooper stuff. So the whole presentation of it, they did the mini tournament to crown a number one contender because fine, he had no one really lined up. So mini tournament, why the hell not? And the whole thing throughout was TK was cheating to win. I've seen people draw comparisons to David Francisco's, the scare they had when they put the belt on him in Southampton earlier this year, probably with a dusty finish. But the whole thing with TK Cooper's been, I'm not a tag team guy yet. The entire run until your call.
I hate that.
Yeah, his entire run up until your call. You and me, TK Cooper, Sunshine. It's like the same presentation. Like, I get you don't want to roll the clock back and do the old keep it 100 or what have you, but every single time you're doing it, I'm not a tag guy, but you're still coming out for tag music. You're still coming out for your tag trunks.
I think doing that full stop has been egregious, and that was something that I wrote in my notes in preparation for this. That's really wound me up about the commentaries are really drilling home this idea of it's not just TK Cooper saying I'm not just a tag guy as like a character for him. You've got the commentary emphasizing this. He wants to prove he's more than just like. What do you mean? Like, what's wrong with being like having you're diminishing your own work in the eyes of the audience? Like, and there's nothing.
Your own division.
And you're also beating Luke Jacobs like an absolute drum, and he's do you know what I mean? Like Luke Jacobs is just shuffled. It feels like so far down the card not in terms of his positioning in the matches, but in our estimations, because he's now just a tag guy. It just feels like there's been this shift in booking ethos and attitude that's become very one-dimensional, very short-sighted. I think a phrase the Americans would use is penny smart, dollar dumb. So you might get this idea of TK Cooper being, this. He could throw away his tag guy, and say I'm breaking free, but then you've lost Sunshine Machine, and you've got. I mean, when's Tag League for Rev Pro? Has that been, or is it coming up, or am I getting my?
So it's not like a fixed show. So the last few months, Rev Pro's taken to doing like a lot of post-show videos. So, like with New Japan, they've started doing we've got a diary room. We'll have the guys go in there and record promos. It works, but we've also had Andy Quillen and Dave Bradshaw do post-show stuff. And we've had this run of Andy dropping snippets of like future announcements. And one of the announcements was teasing, we're going to see Mercedes money sooner than you'd think, which ended up being the Summer Sizzle announcement. There's another announcement we'll touch upon because as we sit now, still no further confirmation, but the other thing was, the Great British Tag League's going to come back, but no dates. I mean, we've literally just
I had a feeling it was on the radar, but if you imagined, you just look at the roster now and say Pie in the Sky is next month, like who would you have? Especially with this reluctance to bring in guys, I think that'd be my J-Cup moment where I'm expecting to be disappointed by the roster.
So I think for the Tag League, I think the thing that's going to save it is it's not a one-show thing. It's spread out across a ton of shows, which I guess may exacerbate things. Like I remember the original Tag League when they brought over the Hours of Hungary, and they kept them the hell away from London for obvious reasons you suspect. Not their band, just more it's bloody expensive getting to London, as they want to point out. But like you look at their home roster now, like you've got True and Lacey, CPF, although they've had a couple of title shots now. Obviously, Young Guns, you've got to keep the champions in there.
I don't know about the Young Guns these days. I don't know if this is a bit of a controversial opinion, but I don't know. I'm not feeling them. Do you know what I mean? I feel like
I think what doesn't help, and no, I don't want to point fingers to either one, but the way they built up Luke Jacobs this time last year, and then relatively quickly did a U-turn and said, right, okay, Luke, you had your win, you had your big moment, back on Michael now. That
He
didn't
had
do him
one
any
of
favours.
like for 2 years in a row, had one of the best matches in the world that year. You know what I mean? Like he had genuine. Like if you were to say those Luke Jacobs Ishii matches were your favourite matches that year, like that would be perfectly legitimate. And I think bringing the booking itself has been quite bad. They're booked strong in that they're the champions, but then everyone else can beat them, and that. And I think that there's a bit of an issue with Ethan Allen at the moment. I think really try to push something that he's not quite got. It would be much better if he was more pushing himself as more technical, if he was pushing himself as a more sort of athletic wrestler, like he's good at, because he is a great technical wrestler. Not in the sort of, I'm not thinking like the Zack Sabre Jr. sense, but as in he's got that kind of feel of being very proficient and very, like a sportsman kind of feel to him. But he's trying to copy the Luke Jacobs character a little bit too much, I think. The hard man, I'll knock you out, I'll find you in an alley and you'd be, that kind of thing. And I don't think he can quite pull that off. And he's ramping that bit up to 11, and it's a bit fourth wall breaking for me. So I think he just needs a little bit of refinement, because Luke Jacobs, like you said, has had that refinement on such a large scale, and Ethan Allen hasn't. It's jarring a little bit, maybe.
I think what doesn't help also with Ethan is, and I mean, I like a lot of his in-ring stuff, but storyline wise, and I've seen a bit of this with Progress lately as well. He's the default. Luke Jacobs got the big singles match. Well, Ethan's the fodder, for the guy who's going to face Luke next. And you've had this, most recently Progress with Man Like Dries this past weekend, and I think we had that run when Ethan was injured, where Luke broke out on his own, and I'd almost dare say at some point, I know this talk with Luke, he's had the tryout, is WWE interested in him? Personally, I think a lot of those WWE tryouts early this year were more to unsettle the scene rather than to really sign people, but we'll see. But I do think, as far as for Young Guns, I do think we're pretty much at the end of the road with them as a regular team. Like, at this point, Ethan and Luke being a regular tandem is doing neither any good. If anything, especially now because we've seen Luke as the champion in both of the big, British promotions, it's just a sign of, hey, you're tag guy by Rev Pro's own decree, as we've seen, just talked about in their storylines. You're just a tag guy. That's you're pretty much saying you've demoted him, so to speak. I don't want to go back to, you've been demoted, you're being pigeonholed, what have you. But their own words, you're just a tag guy.
No, that's literally how they've been presented. It's this idea that you've had your run, and I think what's interesting is there's almost like a preset story with them, with like the Northwest Strong thing, and I love this idea of factions being kind of like wrestling units that kind of spread out, go worldwide, go to different places, and kind of tag when it's convenient. Like Chaos would do. Ishii and Okada, work together. When they came together, but then would separate and do their own thing. And I think that's these. We don't have to have this. What it is, and I think this is what it is that's bothering me about Rev Pro, and it just feels like there's been a bit of a shift in the booking to this very WWE style. You're either a team or you're not. And look at like the end of, I know we're going to get to this later, but look at things like the end of the Rumble. Look at the way, the hardcore match that they had with with the Young Guns at the Rumble as well. It just feels like this very saccharine WWE style booking that doesn't accentuate the strengths of someone like a Luke Jacobs and an Ethan Allen personally.
Well, if you want to compare the WWE booking, look for title scenes. And it's been very, like the start of the year, they did that whole promo thing of the 2-9 where they had every man and their dog. I want to be, the undisputed British heavyweight champion. You had, was it Manders? You had Ricky Knight Jr., JJ Gale, Leon Slater. I might be missing one or two, but you had that long line of people, declaring they wanted a shot, and that set up a list of challenges which Oku has dutifully been ticking through. I think Ricky Knight Jr. and JJ Gale, haven't had theirs yet, but whatever. But apart from that, everywhere else seems to have been, you have your division champion, you have your challenger of the month, everyone else get fucked. And we saw this, literally with the Leon Cage injury. They built up Leon. Both him and Nino Bryant had not won a single match in Rev Pro until that match at High Stakes. The fight for Fusion, where, again, I wouldn't have done it because, or at least had them have a win or two before then, so it didn't come across of, hey, this guy sucks for least, because that was effectively what he was saying. With Nino, oh, you lost, well, it's not your time, you've got a lot more learning to do, and then, because of an injury, sudden gear change, well, quick, you've got to give Nino 3 wins in a month, and now he's champion, which, if you're looking back, with any kind of medium-term view, that is such a jarring shift of fortunes, which, again, speaks to the fact that they had nobody else in position for that spot, or at least the story they wanted to tell. You got heck, we'll go through the Rumble, but like the other thing we kind of touched upon, with say the 2-9 this weekend and nothing being announced. Revolution Rumble's their first London big show of the year, rather. We've had, British Jacob and Stevenage, High Stakes in Doncaster. We've had was it Coventry as well. There's been a Epic Encounter in Wolverhampton. Sorry, I get my Midlands mixed up. But we're getting this very marked effort to pull out of London, it seems. Like, when Rev Pulse moved to new territory, Sheffield was live in Sheffield and was like the B or C shows, if you want to use the naming convention or what have you. Southampton's live in Southampton, live in London. Used to be live at the Cockpit, and then that just got rebranded live in London. St. Neots, when they ran there before the Priory Centre had a refurb, that got one-off show names to keep in with Southside. The Southside convention. Stevenage, same thing. They kept some of the Southside show names before it was, Epic Encounter last year, and obviously British Jacob. So Coventry getting, live in Coventry, and obviously the trio swing last year was a bit different. Doncaster, getting the big shows, which sadly don't seem to have drawn as well as they wanted to. And then, this move to the hangar in Wolverhampton, High Stakes, and also Epic Encounter back in March. The Summer Sizzler in about 3 weeks' time, and then Fantastica Mania in October. And I'm not sitting here going, oh, woe was me, I want to go to every London show. But apart from Rumble this past month and the anniversary show, there is nothing on tap in terms of big London shows. And that, definitely is a sign that things are changing. And I know they've been wanting to spread their wings, so to speak, but if you've got people in London who you're now telling, oh, you need to travel to Wolverhampton, you need to travel to Coventry, heck, Lyon or Barcelona for some of the other shows they're moving into, money's tight for everyone. I don't think you can get quite a number of people you're expecting to switch from rocking up to your call to sitting down watching on demand. We had this, way back when, before they started spreading like this, the Cockpit shows, when they used to do feuds in the Cockpit that played off at your call, and the relative crickets those guys would get because nobody watches you on demand. Apparently the numbers are different, but I don't know, I think longer term it's a bit of a risk moving away from, having the big shows in one area and maybe a token one elsewhere to now. I think when we look at the end of the year, unless they have a sudden glut of shows in London, a lot more of those marquee events are going to be outside of the capital than in.
I think it's hard as well if they're relying on being able to book outside talent for these bigger shows, and if that outside talent isn't as available and money is tight, and you are going to have to think really carefully about who you're booking. And the New Japan thing doesn't seem to be as prominent as it was. There's just a lot of roadblocks in the way, and a lot of things are coming north because it's cheaper up north, but also we're all poor, aren't we? We're all at the coalface with with our flat caps on, and it's just like we're as skint as everyone else. So it's like I used to go to so much more wrestling than I do now because everything costs more. So coming up north more and branching outside of London isn't going to be the anathema that isn't going to be the cure that they potentially think it is. I don't think.
Yeah. But and we'll go to Revolution Rumble. I know RevPro's been claiming there's 1,000 people there. We're going to get Bix on the case because speaking to someone who's there live and people who've been counting the ticket maps that are out, there wasn't even 1,000 tickets out. So I'd love to know where those 250 extra people were. But
Okay, Max.
well, 750. If it was a New Generation Wrestling and Hull did 750, that's 1,000 in London. That's inflation for you. But quick run through the card. We already covered Nino Bryant's absolute comeback from being buried 6 feet deep to beating Will Caven for the Cruiserweight title.
I think it's worth mentioning, Will Caven as well, because back when I did Eurograps Express, I was really harsh on Will Caven, and I thought he was a very, pound shop Seth Rollins, I used to call him. And actually, I think he's improved so much. He's so much more natural, relaxed. He's a great heel, and he's a wrestler that I really look forward to watching now. So I think Will Caven has improved immensely.
I do think with Caven, he's been used as a bit of a whipping boy by a section of fans because, the Cruiserweight division had been put on ice pretty much. You had Leo Rush, when he won the British Straight Cup last year and people were expecting a title change. That got delayed and then didn't happen. But I do think Will Caven's been used as the, hey, he's the guy, he's the champ, but he's not being booked anywhere else of note. That's not my Rev Pro, which, I do get some of the criticisms, at least some of the mannerisms were very much day one, know how to be heel kind of stuff. But it's nowhere near as bad as I think, as I thought he was getting the stick for. But yeah, and again, now he's lost a belt. I mean, one of the things I was kind of expecting as well, and the more he was doing the whole, I've been champ for 300 days, in wrestling, that's the big red flag of, he's losing the belt soon. But I was fully expecting him to hold on to the belt past the anniversary show, if only to remove a name we're not going to bring up from being the longest reigning Cruiserweight champion. He's on behind the list, but
I really didn't think Nino Bryant was going to win either, because I thought the J-Cup was really good for him. But Nino Bryant is a wrestler, and I said this earlier on, who you need to let breathe a little bit, I think. And I know he's been in Repo for a bit now, but you can hear when he comes out, and it was the same in Stevenage as well. He comes out to crickets, and then by the end of the match, he's got the crowd on the feet. Because and again, I'm not, it doesn't bother me so much, but wrestling is an aesthetic business. He doesn't particularly look like a wrestler, and that's his strength, and he turns that into a real positive and gets you behind him. But that just takes a bit more time. Because that used to be the Oku criticism, didn't it? And now you don't even think that about Oku anymore.
Yep.
Because he's absolutely established himself as being a big, great match guy. And Nino Bryant, I think, isn't quite there. So it'll be interesting to see. He's one of those wrestlers that I don't think he's going to work well as a champion. He's a chaser, not the chased, if that makes sense. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Moving on, Kanji beating Emerson Jane. We've been doing a feud since Kanji lost to Mercedes Moné in April. Emerson Jane did the whole "you let us down, I'm going to go for the title shot." Well, we've had 2 matches. It's 1-1. This one, it was fine, but again, for me, RevPro's women's division, I think, it's just been, it's been left gathering dust. This time last year, we were all, we've got the Cut Pro Collective there really shaking things up. Now Alex Wins is off to AEW, but right now, as we sit here, the Cut Pro Collective is literally Lizzie Evo and Sapphire Reed. They're the ones who get regular bookings.
And that's not a good idea to begin with. That stable is quite cringy, I think, and not very good.
It worked for the story, but it was very clear that they should have been done at the anniversary show if they didn't have any follow-up. And I think a lot, as we say in Rev Pro, it's the follow-up that is very lacking. But
well, you hit the nail on the head before, I think, when you said that they don't really know what to do unless there's a belt involved sometimes. And I think this is what's endemic at the women's division, because they're in a bit of a tricky spot that if Mercedes Moné says, I want your belt as part of my belt collector gimmick, you're absolutely going to say yes, because you know you're going to get at least 2 matches out of her. But then the downside is for someone like RevPro, then the belt suddenly disappears and you have no idea what to do. Because God forbid we have more than one women's match on a card, and God forbid they actually start to, plan things that you have a story without the belt. I mean, and the frustrating thing is they can do it, because for how long was the Oku Mills story having nothing to do with belts? And then when they added the belt, it made it so much more interesting. But they don't seem to want to do that with this. I just don't understand why we're having really boring Emerson Jane matches. If I'm honest with you.
I mean, now touch on the money stuff as well. Like, it's very, I would say obvious, but it comes across as if, RevPro find out with very little notice of it. Tony Khan's gone, hey, we don't need a full collision this weekend. Are you able to go get a date and book a show for that date? Which, great. The problem is, if you're finding out, as we did here, Summer Sizzler, they had a month's turnaround. How can you book a destination if you don't know where you're going?
I think,
or when you've got to be there.
Simple. Then I think just keep it super simple and just have it as you've got to think of something that's more personal, that's more relevant, that's more real, that these people can be wrestling over, and then that will get Moné's attention when she's ready, and she'll say, I want a title shot. You just keep it as simple as you can, but be creative with it, do something interesting with it, because at the minute the Emerson Jane Kanji thing just isn't interesting. Like the Cutthroat Collective, it's just not interesting. It's a bit corny, but.
And right now, obviously, we're doing the Sapphire Reed. I'm conflicted. Teasing the whole thing with Sunita Vaughn and the way Team Elsewhere is hyperactive. But that again just seems to be going glacially slow. I mean, was it last year they had the whole Millie McKenzie, being called to join the group, and again, I don't know if it's because of lack of dates or what, but that story just seemed to go at a snail's pace. And got a reaction when we did the whole, I'll be part of the group. Psych, no, I'm not. But again, where's the follow-up? Yeah. Anyway, next we had Connor Mills beating Manders by referee stoppage. This is my kind of wrestling. The only thing was, for me, and I know there's a lot of subtweeting from the RevPro side of things coming in, this was announced for the hell of it, which great, but you've got it's your Rumble show. Can you not at least say, winner goes in number one, loser goes in third, or something like that? It was referee stoppage, not a decisive thing, so we've got plenty of slack to run this back, and I'm going to be completely fine if they do that, because I'm a big Manders guy. Mills, he really has come into his own this last year or two, and this played both men's strengths.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Love Mills. Yeah, he's another one who I remember maybe 5-6 years ago I was a bit shaky on. I think he had moments, but I think he's one of the strongest wrestlers on the scene. I have a lot of time for Connor Mills, and yes, it's a really good match.
Then we had the no DQ tag title match, which, RevPro has. I mean, RevPro always has these where there's a match that goes way too long.
It's talking about an hour and 45 minutes. Was it something along those lines?
Just a touch under 30, but this is one of the I'm not a death match guy. I'm not.
This wasn't a death match. This wasn't a death.
No. But hear me out. It's like I'm not a squeamish to I don't like deathmatch because of blood. But the thing that really has me lose any kind of connection or big universe breaking moment, if you will, is if you see when Game Changer does a more insert deathmatch promotion of choice, and you see we're stopping because we have to build our chair and table structure.
Yeah.
Or even worse, when the referee helps them out. It's like, okay, I'm out.
Yeah.
And I think we had just too much of this where they had ideas that were good on paper, but then it was just so much stopping and stalling as they built shit, they set things up. And I think, I get they wanted to have their TLC moment, the big match you hung up to say, this is what we're capable of. But again, half an hour and it just completely overshot the landing. CPF, and I've heard a few people complain that they're meant to be baby faces, but they come off as completely unlikable to a certain section. They cashed in the trophies to get this shot, but then end up falling short and blah blah blah. CPF are not for me as an act, and I'm fine. I turned 42 in a couple of weeks' time. CPF, not my, I'm not their target audience. But it's a whole thing. They've had 2 runs of the belt. If you want to be threatening, they've got 2 more. They've got 2 more of those trophies, and they've got only 2 months to figure out what the hell they're doing with those things. I think this is one where they had some good ideas. It just was packed with too much filler, and like with the Rumble, it just a lot of stuff that just didn't really land for me.
Yeah, nobody in the match was particularly good at this style of match. And it just, like you say, it felt very clunky. I think I had issues, and I'm almost kind of hesitant to say this because it's not my body and all that, but I don't think anybody had the decency to do any decent blading. Luke Jacobs did, and it took him about half an hour to do it, and it was a pathetic trickle. They didn't seem committed to it at certain points, and that's fine because like you said, I'm not particularly a deathmatch guy either. It's not, I see a match like this and it doesn't particularly make me excited in the build up to it. So why not just have a normal match? If you're gonna do it, you got to do it. You've got to get somewhere near that Muta scale, and just nobody seemed to particularly have that desire to do that. So it seemed like a silly match to do to me, but.
And again, it's a thing where Young Guns. Okay, see, I've had one win over them, but Young Guns have pretty much beat them in all of the the tentpole matches, so to speak. So you'd hope this is them done as a challenger, but got Great British Tag League coming up, and God knows we could always circle back there. Second half, Michael Oku beating TK Cooper to retain the title. Kind of went over this one already. As a challenge of a month thing, they did a pretty good fist for TK, get them into that spot. But unfortunately, they also did the whole, I'm not a tag guy, to the point where that's the thing people keep thinking of. And Sunshine Machine, they split up, I guess, in the Rumble. Think Chuck Mambo slowing down bookings elsewhere. They effectively laid the groundwork to split them in progress this past weekend. So I don't know if that is really the end of Sunshine Machine, but if you are going to have a really good fist of TK as a credible singles guy, I mean, one, in Rev Pro, if you look back at this cage match, there is a long history of matches there with the TK where he was pretty much being beaten like a drum at points. Like, I know Oku referred to it in some of the pre-show video, like pre-match promos. You say I've had other glory spots, and then was that random match with TK and MJF was at Northampton before COVID, which again, if you go that far back, stuff there which probably I wouldn't have done, but I'm not going to dig up old wounds. But yeah, I think that one was TK. I don't think I ever bought him winning the belt, but certainly he had his fans who did. And we'll see what comes from next. And again, it's that you've done the work, and then what that has been part of it's been the issue of Rev Pro this year. Revolution Rumble, and there's a lot I think that you can dissect. For one bit that I think would be remiss not to bring up, if only because there's been, I guess, an ongoing rumbling online about this. What the hell were they doing bringing in Eugene? And I'm not talking about like the character. I didn't like the character when he was in WWE because of how WWE portrayed it. And yes, that's 2005 versus 2025. But Eugene at a Rev Pro Your Call show was just so tonally jarring. It's like, back when they used to run was the Guildhall in Portsmouth, that's where you'd have seen Eugene. Heck, they had Ryback in Portsmouth back in the day. But Eugene for Rev Pro Your Call was just so many bits in a row where it's like, this isn't Rev Pro. I'm not saying this isn't my Rev Pro. That just didn't seem to be a very Rev Pro Your Call thing to do.
I think
without all the additional baggage.
Yeah, and I think it's worth talking about that additional thing as well, because we sort of, I'm not saying there was bad intentions here, and I'm not saying that it's something that, like you say, in 2005 we did things that we wouldn't do now. I don't think the Eugene gimmick is appropriate in 2025. If that makes me sound like, painfully woke, then good, I guess, and so be it. But I'm somebody who works with children who have additional needs. It's a big part of my life. And it's just something that you leave in the past and you wouldn't do now. And then you've got that idea of like the cultural capital thing of, does he actually fit in York Hall anyway? Probably not. Why was he there? He just sort of came out of nowhere. And I assume they paid money for this guy to do not very much and have not very much afterwards. So
yeah, it's like a 3 minute
lose, isn't it? It's just a lose situation all around.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying Rev Pro haven't done the as seen on WWE stuff. Like, you've had Rey Mysterio, what you're called Vader, Kurt Angle, but those three guys up here, at least, And Eugene, with all due respect, Nick Dinsmore, not in the same stratosphere. And again, that's without the whole extra baggage. Again, I wasn't offended, but unfortunately, that I'm not the guy who would be there to be offended, if you know what I'm getting at. It's that kind of character. I know what we're getting at. Rev Pro's usage of him wasn't the, to dig up old ground, how they portrayed the Eugene character in WWE with, let's make fun of him because he's got he's got special needs, he's got, how they, tried to tiptoe around it in such a crude way back then. It just, to me, felt like a needless own goal. And I'm not sitting here saying, Rev Pro need to address it because it's caused hurt, but I would love to know what that thinking was behind even booking this for, granted, a 3-minute spot in the match, but
yeah, no one needs a no-sap apology. No one needs any. No. I'm not calling for any of that. It's just, but I think the whole Rumble was very fed-pilled. And I just want them to stop doing it now. Like, even down to the noises that they use and the bell, the buzzer, it feels like they're really leaning into something. And they're ending as well. I mean, we could talk about Sha Samuels winning in a second. I don't know how you feel about that. But the whole thing of, he thought he'd eliminated everyone and then, surprise, surprise,
it's a trope to all battle royals that I wanted gone before COVID.
Yeah, what are you doing? Like, have a bit, and I'm sorry, I'm going to do a classic Eurograps Express rant with this one, and I apologise for this one. Like, do you not have any pride in your job? Like, this was such a boring Rumble. There was no little nuances to it. People like Cameron Kai, who should have the absolute rocket pack attached to him, are just being dumped out with no ceremony. Luke Jacobs just dumped out to absolutely nothing. There was a little bit with Robbie X coming in and having that kind of surprise return thing, but there was just nothing to talk about. And talk about another fed-pilled thing, Gideon Grey, and I love Gideon Grey. Gideon Grey is in, and this might sound like hyperbole to some, and I promise you that it isn't. Gideon Grey is in my top 10 all-time wrestling performers. I think he's absolutely brilliant. I think he's a genius. But when his music goes and he gets off the commentary desk, and I've got images of Maggle Cole putting his wrestling ear protectors on, and I'm just thinking, what are we doing with this? Get rid of this Rumble. Get rid of it.
It's a kind of thing Rev Pro never used to do, at least, again, on the big stage, and we used to do it for contender shows. It's a kind of thing, I think it's been added on because everyone likes a Rumble. I know it was a Progress did it with the Proteus belt when we brought that in. It doesn't fit Rev Pro tonally. And
I bet nobody liked this Rumble. Everyone likes a Rumble, and this is the exception that proves the rule. I want to find the person who enjoyed this.
I mean, for me, we've already gone through some of the Fed pill stuff. The thing that stood out for me was the amount of times we had, guys spilling outside, they're brawling out, but we're not eliminated, they're just outselling on the floor, and we're brawling to the back. It's like,
oh yeah,
okay.
Technically they went under the bottom rope. Okay, it's still boring. Like, that's not an interesting. That's not an interesting booking nuance. You know what I mean? You're not Pat Patterson. Let's just. And again, it's just all the way through. I forgot to mention before in the J Cup as well, like having a 4-way as the final for that, rather than just have an extra couple of matches. It's just weird booking decisions for me at the moment.
Yeah, and again, I suppose with the Rumble, it being not by default for title shot, although everyone's picks for title shots so far, it meant you weren't going, who's going to be realistic to challenge Oku? But going back for winner Sha Samuels, I mean, if you want to be ridiculously short-handed on this, it does feel a bit like Rev Pro doing their Tanahashi thing, but with someone who hasn't got bad knees. They have played, a few times now, Sha having a swan song, whether that's timed or, if that NXT Europe thing's knocking, who knows. But yeah, I mean, for me, I didn't feel so down on Sha winning. I mean, I like Sha Samuels, but for me, it also felt like that's playing to a part of the fan base that maybe isn't there anymore.
Yeah,
I know live people are very, Why is he one? Because they don't watch we don't watch all the shows. They don't follow the promos where Shah's talking about, have I been surpassed by the new generation? It's the easiest story in the book. Although, this is Shah against Oku, you'd suspect it'd be for the anniversary show. That in itself doesn't feel like a main event, or at least anniversary main event. So is there a big name coming in? Again, we're 2 months out and we don't know a single name for the anniversary show, which is a wider concern. But yeah, I think in terms of Rumble itself, you've touched on a lot of the WWE-ified part of it, which, I know WXW's got their Rumble next month. You're not going to get as many, if any, of the Brawl to the Outside, or, you're not going to get Met Damasi throw off a headset and come down from the balcony to join the match. So in that regard, you're not going to get that kind of stuff. And I like Met just much like Gideon. Both of them have got a lot of time in the world for, but it's just that whole thing of, it's not the guys, it's the tropes which unfortunately have been creeping more and more in. And again, so yeah, Shah, what were your takes on Shah winning?
It's a funny one with Shah because I understand what you're saying, and I think in a way it's nice if you're going to do the anniversary show to have a very classic Rev Pro match, and Shah against Oku just feels very Rev Pro. It feels like two very deep Rev Pro guys, but I just can't get excited about it, and it's almost a little bit kayfabe breaking with the if the story is Shah saying, have I been surpassed by the younger generation? Well, it's not really a rhetorical question because yes, and I know that's awful to say because I do really like Shah Samuels. He's, I think you absolutely have him around, you have him doing things, but he shouldn't be at the top of the card. He should be, I think, your gatekeeper. I think he should be the guy putting people over, not on the top of the card and winning the Rumble. But that's me.
Just a quick cage match. Oku and Shah's had one prior match, 2023 in Southampton. They've also been in all 3 Revolution Rumbles so far. Obviously, I don't think there's been too much wave interaction, but yeah, just thought it was weird how one-on-one was only been one singles match, and the rest have been, the majority of them have been Blooming Rumbles for WXW and Rev Pro. But
that is positive, though, I think, because it feels like a Rev Pro match.
It's not overdone.
It still feels fresh. The problem is it doesn't feel exciting. It doesn't feel like something that I can really go, oh yeah, it's not gonna have you getting that credit card out to book a ticket, I don't think.
Especially with Crystal Palace. But anyway, we've got a few more grumbles here. So we touched upon the women's division stuff. So post Revolution Rumble, Andy Quillen did the recap video and mentioned we're going to have a 4-woman tournament to get the Mercedes Money match. Now, I've been tracking stuff like win-loss records because I'm a fucking nerd. But you look at especially the women's division, the only woman they regularly use who has a winning record is Kanji. She's already had the shot. No, Danny Luna won that high-stakes match, but that very quickly got retconned as not being for a title shot, in which case was that half an hour of wrestling for the sake of wrestling, guess so. So now we're doing a 4-woman tournament for the match against Mercedes, are they? Because it's 5 to 10 p.m. Wednesday night. Not a single match still has been announced, and right now there's a lot of people who are effectively playing a game of guess who when it comes to who's actually being booked and who isn't. I've got one name for the 229 this weekend, and in the style of guess who, is he in a different gear?
In a different gear?
Ethan Allen, he's announced he's booked for Rev Pro this weekend. No match, but we're at the point now where 3 days out, 4 days out, we're waiting for wrestlers to tweet that they're appearing on a show.
Oh, so it's just something that he's tweeted off his own personal account and he's not actually been announced. Right.
Yeah, literally back at Rev Pro UK this weekend, who wants it?
They've not put anything on Blue Sky, and I don't know. I'm very much not. I've deleted all my Twitter, and I don't keep up with this stuff as much anymore. But they've not updated their Blue Sky for 5 months.
I'm just as guilty of apps, but yeah, at the same point, if you're going to move to a social media platform, you need to either invest in something where it will auto post this stuff or commit to it. I mean, like right now, like RevPro's Twitter. This is, had a flurry today. The tweet with the summer dates, retweeting their graphic designer, replying to a BBC News article about redesigning England's banknotes with his Mercedes Money Bank of Money note that he made for the High Stakes show. An announcement for summer sister tickets on general sale now with Los Tranquilos, Jay Hapon and Mercedes Money. Yeah, well, I'd hope for on sale with shows in 3 weeks' time. Retweeting David Francisco clip from the Rumble. Then we're going back for weekend general sale for RevPro Live in Leon. And then, we're going back to post-Rumble stuff. So, considering they have their busiest summer ever, pretty quiet Twitter account. But, so right now, all we know is through Throwaway Andy Quilden line, there's going to be a 4-woman tournament. People, like say, playing Guess Who for who's actually going to be booked, like looking at who's booked where. Obviously, it's London this Sunday, Coventry next week, and then Coventry, I'd suspect, be the final as well, and then the winner on July 25th in Wolverhampton. So people looking to see who's got other bookings on the 25th, who's got other bookings these next 2 Sundays. Sort it out, man. I mean, you want, like we said at the top, you're promoting, you want people to buy tickets to a show. People are not buying blind. I know we're not, very much not going to be post-speaking out days where people are demanding roster lists and cards for even plunk money down for a ticket. But when you're getting more and more shows where cards aren't even beginning to be announced on show week, you've got problems.
I mean, it's as simple for me as my mortgage cost twice as much as it did 5 years ago. So I can't go to every RevPro show blind, and I don't want to spend money going to a show that I don't know who's there because I don't know if I'm getting value for money. It's baffling to me that they're not announcing who's going to be there. I mean, unless they don't know who's going to be there, which is even more worrying, really. Surely they must do.
Oh, God, yeah. You'd hope so. I mean, the other thing I'd say as well, and goes back to the stream live or you miss out thing. RevPro On Demand is. I feel like I'm getting grey here. How much is RevPro On Demand these days?
£8, I think. Is it?
Let's have a look. Revolution Rumble, subscribe. £7.40 a month or £70 a year. So for the cost of 2 front row tickets for $229, you can have a year's RevPro On Demand. Which for people right now, if you're watching your wallet, and especially if all of the majority of your shows are going to be streaming live, you're going to be picking streaming. But
it's a tricky situation they're in with that, though, because the kind of the market has set the price. I'm sorry, I know I sound like a right capitalist there. I apologise, but it's like that's kind of how much it costs. I mean, look at have you seen how much CMLL's thing is? They want £30 a month, and I won't pay that. I could afford it, I think, but I won't pay it because it just seems egregious.
I mean, when
the
WWE Network started, about 10 years ago, people said this was going to cannibalize a lot of independent promotions' business methods. 10 years ago, the business method wasn't a streaming service. The method 10 years ago was, the old Ring of Honor method. You go to the show live. If you can't go to the show live, you wait for us to make it, master and put it on DVD. There'd be a lot of people who, would have, and I was one of them, had massive packets of DVDs shipped across from overseas.
I was just going to say, how many times have you paid more than £20 for a DVD and thought nothing of it? Yeah, if I was to ask you to pay £20 a month now, you'd think like, I don't know if that's good value. It's just such the whole I really feel for these independent promotions and the world that they're in.
It's an unfortunate race for Bobman. We touched upon the Cultaholic interview with North's Andrew Bowers. That's touched upon. They tried going live earlier this year, and they did bring 1, maybe 2 shows, and they've backed out because it just didn't make financial sense. And tying the bow, it's a whole thing of, if you can't get people through the doors, you've got to find a way to make people want to spend money on your product. If that's streaming, do you? I mean, the other thing. I know nothing about video editing, but I do know that other promotions largely are able to put out a complete product on VOD, by which I mean, they'll patch the house mic through. If they have video packages, they're put through a live mix rather than showing a camera filming the video screen. They have on-screen graphics where, they do all that stuff, and it's DIY, but it's not also, painfully polished like WWE and AEW. So other independent promotions can do that. With Rev Pro, if you're watching live, there's no lower thirds. If there's any video, you're relying on someone pointing the camera to the screen for the most part, which it has its charm. But at the end of the day, if you're limited and you're going for rough and ready live Rev Pro stream, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to see the polished final edit versus WXW now where their stuff is very high quality, or IWTV where they have a lot more promotion, or even Triller where they have it maybe not as much as they used to. You can only spend your money once. Going back to like Rev Pro, their old Europe, their USP always was, and I think still is on the match, pro wrestling at its best. That kind of dipped a little, like we said earlier on, the Match of the Year polls always used to have a lot of Rev Pro, and this year, I mean, on the Back Body Drop website, I keep a list of, I'm not watching and rating as much as I used to, but I keep a list of matches I've gone north of 4 stars on. We're in July now. I've not added anything to this since WrestleMania weekend, and the last Rev Pro match I went over 4 on was March.
Yeah, I mean, we've still got the summer, which is apparently the biggest summer of Rev Pro's history. Is it? What are they pushing as? The ultimate summer?
Yeah.
So, we'll see.
Well, I don't want to read too much into that because the word ultimate does imply one thing. But one last thing on Rev Pro, because we've already gone about them going gung-ho on other towns. That lack of New Japan, seeming lack of New Japan connection to me, it is very easy to peel away the skin of that and say, well, the last couple of excursions I had haven't exactly been glowing. And I don't want to be, it was Batista with, after he went to OVW and he had nothing good to say about it. But when Shota Umino was over, and granted it was during the pandemic, so everything was up in the air, there was those New Japan diaries which were hardly, showering Rev Pro of praise, shall we say, at least of his living situation. Youngblood, their run over here last year, I would say was very disappointing. Like, I've heard rumblings, from people who've met from the merch table of, general discontent with the way they were used in Rev Pro, over stuff that I probably can't be repeating, but the fact that their Rev Pro run started was in February last year, and by the anniversary show they were done. Like now their excursion wrapped up in Europe in March, April time. They finished with WXW, they finished with Pro Wrestling Holland. They're not on New Japan cards as we speak. They're back in New Zealand doing bloody Fale Dojo, New Japan Tamashii stuff. And it's like, that to me could be more damaging than you'd think. Like, I know New Japan's really changed how they do excursions, but if you think New Japan, had this run where you had guys going to Ring of Honor when it was a standalone thing. I know Evil's excursion was not exactly great, but you think, we had Shota, we had Yota Tsuji, we had Youngblood, and, for the most part, unfortunately, things don't seem to have gone well. That's coincided with New Japan not having any representation on Rev Pro shows this calendar year. I'm not saying that, one's caused the other, but you do have to wonder. And this is me saying, I want New Japan, give me House of Torture, get fucked.
Yeah.
But it's just nothing when you look and see, like, this has happened and this has also happened, is there a link? And unfortunately, because things aren't going as well as they would have been, people start digging into stuff like this. People start looking at, hey, is this why New Japan's not taking part? I mean, we'll see. But yeah, Rev Pro, they've got a lot of shows coming up, unfortunately. Not much in the way of matches announced. Hopefully, Andy's furiously working away in Photoshop, and he's got a huge litany of match graphics to post before this episode drops. Sod's Law, every time I do a podcast, there's a big news story drops the day after. We'll see.
Even if he announces them tomorrow, the point still stands, because they should have been up weeks and weeks and weeks ago.
Because you've got people like, even folks who live in London, you live in London, even like Zone 1 or what have you, you still have to, make plans, get up, make a point of getting to 229, especially, I know these days, front row is, at least for season tickets, is assigned seating. But if you want a decent seat or what have you, you've got to queue. So you've got to make a point of getting there early, or you just want to get there and stand by the bar, whatever you want. But people, and we've seen this with other wrestling shows and other entertainments. If you book something now, like Forbidden Door, I jumped on the pre-sale because I'm an idiot. I paid way too much for my ticket up in the gods. But I booked my ticket, I booked my hotel. I'm going unless the world falls apart, or there's a TFL strike, hell no, or what have you. If I'd waited to a week off and there's tickets left, oh well, I'm washing my hair. If you know me, you know why that's funny. Oh anything else could get in the way. And this problem is yes, you can rely on walk business, but that's also probably the least number of people you're going to get, especially if you don't do any local promotion. That's going to be the smallest pot of people you're going to get, because the closer you get to something, the fewer people have plans that they're either willing to drop or willing to suddenly make plans and go, okay, I know I was going to have Sunday lazing at home before I go back to work tomorrow. No, sorry, I'll go for wrestling. And your core fans have already got the tickets. It's that floating voter who decides on a show-by-show basis. They're the ones that you kind of need to appeal more to. But we'll see. We've got a lot of practice to get into these. A couple of other shows coming up, and I guess quick wipe-up results. This coming Friday eve, we've got their monthly show Mean Girls at the Big Penny Social in Walthamstow. We've got Chris Statlander over taking on Anita Vaughan for the international title there. That should be interesting. Also, we've got a fight to finish match with Nina Samuels against Sapphire Reed. Long bit of story here. Nina beat Sapphire for the Eve belt back in the day. Eve since lost the belt. So now I guess this is almost like a big blow-off. It's worth noting, mind, that Nina has been shedding titles in recent months. Not all the belts were on Cage Match, but she lost the Eve International belt in March, then the Eve title in May. The Progress Women's belt 2 days later, the W3L title in Scotland on May 16th. It's also got a Loser Leaves Town match in Progress against Kanji this month. So, if you have a load of belts, you start dropping them and suddenly start taking on Loser Leaves Town matches. Something may be going on, is all I can say on that front. WXW Striver Champions was a couple of weeks back. This particular show is live on WXW now, but I believe the VOD's on Triller later this week. Headlined Amanda's against Aaliyah Bloom in a Texas Death match. Suitably bloody. Aaliyah was bleeding like a good in about 5 minutes into this match. So if you're into blood and Texas Death matches, head on by one of all. I do recognise Texas Death matches aren't that big of a stipulation, and there was some element of a live crowd having to be educated, and also the live crowd sweating their bollocks off, because speaking to someone who was in Turbine Hall that night, it was super humid. They were getting a warm-up of the heat wave they were getting at the moment. Elsewhere, Robert Dreisker, Mark Empire, new to WXW Tag Champions. It's Dreisker's 6th tag title reign with 6 different partners, which is a neat little stat. We've got a Who against Amanda's at Shock at the Top in August, and of course, be Shock at the Top Rumble itself. And a Who against Aaliyah Bloom on July 19th in Frankfurt in a dog collar submission match, which feels a bit like laid gimmick heavy, but yeah, both those on Triller in English as well. So if you want to catch up on that, that'll be on July 19th. Progress has passed for a weekend in Manchester. We had Man Like Dries beating Ethan Allen as replacement for Chris Ridgway. Main event, and you'll be surprised by this. Luke Jacobs retaining the Progress Men's World Title over Cara Noir. What I would say was probably one of the best matches in the UK this year.
I don't believe it.
And I'm not. They dialed down the amateur dramatic stuff of Cara Noir. There was a little bit of towards the end, 1 count kick out, NXT shocked face, but this is a genuinely good match.
I am going to seek this one out actually, and I did say Cara Noir is. I don't know if I've ever articulated my thoughts on Cara Noir, but he's the absolute antithesis of what I want from my wrestling. I really, if you ever been on his website and you look at this sort of very kind of patronising...
I've seen back in the day, yeah, it's very much like almost like an actor's portfolio kind of thing.
Yeah, just an awful
He's my
kind
range.
Yeah, just a very. I find it very sneery, very patronising, very. And he wrestles in a way that I just don't want to watch. And this show, I could get to the O2 Ritz in town in about 20 minutes, and I still shut the curtains just in case. But now you've said that, I'm seriously considering that I might have to watch this main event. Because I'll always eat humble pie. I'm always willing to be proved wrong, so I'll have a go.
And in terms of match time as well, it was only about 20 minutes, so it didn't go overly long either. So, well worth a shot. Elsewhere on the Progress show, Shotzi Blackheart debuted with an arm in a cast, selling the Matt Cardona arm injury stuff, losing to Nina Samuels. Sunshine Machine lost the Progress tag titles to the first defense, losing to Lycos Jim. This one, if you watch live streams, complete clusterfuck. Kid Lycos loaded his knee pad for the Psycho knee. Commentary was screaming about it, but the camera crew didn't show it. Nice to have had the Rev Pro crew on loan that day. But yeah, that probably big stuff from Progress this past weekend. Other stuff from around Europe in the last few weeks, and most of these will be streaming somewhere. I'm not going to cover all these, but ICW wrapped up their 10th year Asylum in Glasgow. They had a 2-night show called Paul Wanut. Charles Samuels retained the Zero G title for against Jack Morris in night 1. Kenny Williams retained the ICW title against Aaron Echo in night 2. The first show back at the garage, or regularly back at the garage, is Kenny Williams against Rio ICW title defense event. I believe that is towards the back end of July, I believe. So that one will be on Triller. Over in Holland, Rico Bushido's live action wrestling was in Groningen about a month ago with Jörn Simmons winning the main event. Jörn's become a bit regular in live action wrestling since he lost the Pro Wrestling Holland tag title back in April. I'm just waiting to get back to WXW and get his own back on Lavaniel. If you know, you know, from 2 years ago. Berlin's GWF have had a ton of shows, both live and dropping on YouTube. Started this month, Rising Heat saw Axel Tischer beat Metahan and Erkan Silchani to win the GWF title. That's up on the GWF YouTube. Pretty much all their Berlin shows are streaming live. We've got this coming Sunday, we've got Summer Heat with Kid Lycos challenging Rambo for the GWF title. Axel Tischer against Erkan Silchani, and Jack Morris against Pascal Schwalter. And if you're waiting, a couple of the GWF house shows from May are up there. I think it was either Rostock and Hamburg went up. So we had 2 house shows there, which I thought was going to be for a live crowd, but made tape. Sticking in Germany, Unlimited Wrestling had a show, Firewall 2025 in Berlin. Aitaj Bahar won the Unlimited Challenge title. We had German wrestling promotion in Roth, nothing of note there. They usually have a couple of bits on their cards, but nothing this time. I'm going to butcher this, W. Kirchhain in near Dresden, who had Rising Star Warriors, seems to be a new promotion, with Drew Gulak random flying there, losing a street fight for the vacant RSW title to Erkan Silchani. If you look around on Cage Match, like the European promotions, a bunch of random names just popping up in these German promotions, and I'm not saying I want to see Drew Gulak in the UK, but very weird, like some of the promotions that these guys pop up for.
Is it like a seminar situation, like they bring him in to do some training and stick around for
probably
booking, maybe something like that?
More than likely, yeah. I mean, I know that Rings of Europe, they really dial down the show. They tend to do that. They'll bring people in for 1 or 2 shows and maybe get people in trouble. Wrap up with a couple of shows from Nanterre in France this past weekend at the Studio Jenny. 4th Rope ran Pray for Paris with a stacked card. Shelton Benjamin was meant to be on this. He pulled out late on. Instead, we've got Michael Oak, who replaced him against Kuro. That was the title for title, APC against Rev Pro, British Heavyweight title. And would you believe it, Neil? It ended in no contest.
Knocker.
Funny how that works. Elsewhere, we had EJ Nduka, the judge. He beat A-Buck. And Mara Sade, the former Jakara Jackson, made her first post-WWE appearance. She teamed with Tiara James to beat GJU and Rio. So don't think that's out on stream anywhere, but I'd imagine it'll make tape somewhere eventually. The next day, APC took over their usual spot in the Studio Jenny for Final Storm. This was up on YouTube Live with Met Damasi doing English commentary. I'll have this one linked in the show notes. Rio retained the Progress Women's belt against GJU and Celine in the opener. And main event had Nick Nemeth beating the soon-to-be disappearing Igor Blanc. Again, another one, Nick Nemeth over and only doing a promotion in France. Like, I don't know if it's finance or what, but we're getting a lot of random promotions booking American names and them not doing stuff in the UK, which it's always a bit for nothing. Like back in the day, to get like they do, maybe Progress and Rev Pro, then bugger off to you for the next day. But definitely doesn't seem to be happening these days.
Wonder if he's just on his holidays and they've said he's been local to promotion and he's got him some beer tokens, maybe something like that.
Could be. I mean, generally, I can know not to use Nick Nemeth as an example, but his European run after WWE hasn't really materialised. And I guess one random thing to spoke earlier about promotion up the road for me. Found out in Discord they've got a training school. Knew that much. Have a guess which former WWE guy they had do a training school, a training seminar at, with all due respect to New Force, a small promotion just outside of Uxbridge in West London.
I'm trying to think of a silly one, but I don't want to say the wrong name, so I'm just going to let you tell me, I think.
They had Rhino do a training seminar for,
okay.
I think it's about 12 people. It's like, again, Rhino's name, I know he had, Rev Pro booked him, but remember they had him give the guard to Dan Maloney before he went all Bullet Club.
Ew.
And then, Dan Maloney isn't, has made himself not want to work with Rev Pro anymore, which, again, some to scratch at, I guess. But, I thought that was weird how, you get a load of, as seen in WWE names who just aren't doing the big promotions. And again, next episode's going to be out after this. Didn't put this in the notes, but North Wrestling, they're doing their annual big show at the Walker Dome in Jesmond and Newcastle. I hope it's Jesmond. No, it's Walker, because it's Walker Dome. I'm from up there and I get my local knowledge wrong. But yeah, that was the show was meant to be headlined by Tajiri. He's pulled out because of an issue with the promotion booking his transport. So we've now got Raj Desi with former Jinder Mahal against Amir Jordan, I guess, in the main event there, which I know there's been a few people pointing off, but North said they've gotten a lot of people buy tickets and sort of meet and greets based on that. So who am I to judge? We've also got Paul London on that same show, Leon Slater, Rio, Rampage Brown. So it's the third show we've got at the Walker Dome. So the main event isn't Raj Desi and Amir Jordan. It's actually Leon Slater defending the North title against Liam Slater and Gene Money. So yeah, bit for everyone there. And it's not going to be streaming live. It will be on their Patreon on demand as well. But definitely North. Come on a long way from those first shows on the Riverside on the banks of the Tyne all those years ago.
Yeah, North are a promotion that I haven't caught up with for a while. But this might be a good time to jump on. But when you said Gene Money, then my interest kind of waned slightly.
It's very easy to do, but I think in Progress, the way he's been presented there from day one's always been as a comedy act. But I've always been a fan of Gene in smaller rooms, which not is a knock on North, but North very much isn't seen at the same level as Progress. But this is a thing they have been doing through stories. They have had interactions. Liam and Leon, coach and trainer situation. And I believe that was previously a Thunderstruck match in years gone by. Let me check that quick. But I think Thunderstruck won in 2023. Was Leon against Liam, so that was the first one, was Leon beating Liam for the title. So there's rivalry there, and there's also rivalry with Leon and Gene Money from the end of last year. So this isn't hey, let's just throw the big names we've got together. But yeah, it's one, I think, for people who've been paying close attention to North, they're very much on board with. I'm not going to be able to get up there to see this live, but I'm very much going to make a point of checking this out on their Patreon. are doing good things. And I'm saying that through gritted teeth, as a Sunderland supporter, about something from Newcastle. But making it this far, 3 big shows, definitely not to be sniffed at, especially in this climate. But keep an eye on that. That is North. If you just search for northwestern.co.uk, you'll find the socials and Patreon there. But Neil, you said you've no longer on Twitter, but if people want to find you on Blue Sky, how do they do that?
If I'm completely honest, I've got absolutely no idea. I've spent the last 6 months just completely... It's weird, like I've just completely detoxed myself for social media and I don't miss it. I don't think about it. I do have a profile and it's Neil-David, but there's absolutely nothing on there. So I don't know, I guess. Voices of Wrestling Discord, I lurk in there from time to time.
As do I most times. But yeah, thanks so much for joining us, mate. We'll have you on at some point, maybe, to maybe detox the anniversary shows once you've been through whatever the heck's going to be coming through. And just one final time check. It is 10:20. Sound like Alan Partridge, but it's 10:20 Wednesday night. Still nothing announced for Rev Pro for 229 this weekend. And I suspect, by the time this is uploaded, they'll have a full card. More for me. But yeah, thanks again for joining me, Neil. If you want to follow me on social media, just search for Ian Wrestling. You'll find everything there. But yeah, thanks again for listening, folks, and we'll see you on the next round of Euro Clutch. Thanks very much.
My name is Tyler Fornes, and I am one of the co-hosts of the Good, the Bad, and the Hungy AEW podcast here on the Voice of Wrestling Podcasting Network. We take a broad scope approach to the world of All Elite Wrestling and the entire universe of Tony Khan. We talk about the big matches, the big stars, the promos, the storylines, and we also look at it from a big picture perspective. How are things going to change over the course of the next 10 years with AEW still in the picture? How are companies like WWE going to adapt and adjust to AEW? Are they going to be a similar way like they did with WCW in the late 1990s? Will there be a counterpunch? We talk about all of that and more on The Good, the Bad, and the Hungy every week on the Voice of Wrestling Network.